I'm going to call this meeting to order, 5:15. Comments from the public on closed session items. I see we have an attendee. If you have a comment, please put it in the chat on closed session.
I just opened up the chat.
Okay.
Thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi.
Good.
All right, so we will adjourn to closed session.
See you in a minute.
For being awarded the PAC Student of the Semester for 8th grade at tonight's PCS board meeting. Yay! Good job.
Thank you, Ani.
Yeah.
All right, congratulations. So we are going to move on to Kenilworth. Okay, and once everyone's up, just go ahead.
We should be good.
Student of the Month, April 2021. Kenilworth Junior High School is proud to introduce our April Student of the Month, Giles Ivory. Giles has been chosen Student of the Month because he's one of Kenilworth's most outstanding and well-rounded students. Giles has excelled academically, artistically, and musically while a student at Kenilworth. Giles has continued to maintain outstanding grades while enrolled in one of Kenilworth's most challenging schedules of classes. Impressively, Giles is currently earning an A in both his Advanced English and Accelerated Math 1 classes. Ms. Chavez, Giles' Advanced English teacher, enthusiastically shared, "Giles is a wonderful student. He's also a gifted artist who will share his work with the class, which brightens our day. He's also willing to share his ideas, thoughts, and insight about what we have been reading or writing. Giles is respectful and kind, admired by his classmates, and a joy to have in class. Not only is Giles outstanding student academically, but he is also a talented trumpet player. Giles has been a member of Kenilworth's Jazz Band for 2 years, and he is currently a member of our Lance Symphonic Band class." Miss Hopkins, Giles' band teacher, added, "Giles is a very kind, a real gentleman. He's a very talented trumpet player. Giles has continued to improve as a musician, even through distance and hybrid learning. In his free time, Giles enjoys drawing, playing his ukulele, playing Minecraft, and playing soccer and basketball. Impressively, Giles has also volunteered at Petaluma's homeless shelter, helping to organize and serve food. After graduating from Casa Grande High School, Giles would like to attend college and continue to pursue his art. While Giles isn't sure where he would like to attend college, we at Kenilworth are certain whatever college that is lucky enough to have Giles will be getting one of Petaluma's finest students and citizens. Congratulations, Giles."
Kenilworth Junior High School is proud to present our girl April Student of the Month, Tess Henry. Tess was chosen Student of the Month because she is one of our best and brightest students. Tess has been an outstanding student at Kenilworth, excelling both in person and during distance learning. Tess has maintained a 4.0 grade point average all 3 of her semesters at Kenilworth and is currently earning an A+ in all 6 of her classes. Tess's teachers were eager to share their praise of this impressive young lady. Miss Rudder, Tess's math teacher, shared Tess is a great student. Tess is dedicated, on task, completes all of her work on time, and does excellent work. She has been lovely to work with. Miss Crozier, Tess's science teacher, has also been impressed. Tess is a highly motivated student who turns in exceptional work. Tess is creative and she strives to do her best on all of her assignments. Miss Rennie, Tess's robotics and engineering teacher, enthusiastically added, "Tess brings a positive attitude and creativity to our robotics class every day. She is a pleasure to have as a student. Not only is Tess an excellent student, but she is also a dedicated and talented ballet dancer. Tess has been a member of the Santa Rosa Dance Theater Ballet for 7 years. During her time as a member of the dance theater, Tess has performed in the Nutcracker Suite each of those 7 years. After high school, Tess would like to attend college and eventually study law at Stanford University. We at Kenilworth could not be any prouder of Tess. We know Tess has a bright future ahead of her. Congratulations, Tess.
All right, thank you. Congratulations. Super impressive young people here. So next up, we have Petaluma Junior High School.
Okay, I think we've got everybody.
Okay.
Okay. Hi, my name is Grace Young, and I'm in 8th grade at Petaluma Junior High. We are so pleased to present Ashley Vesquez Martin as one of our April 2021 Students of the Month. Ashley is one of those unique individuals who faces the world with kindness, confidence, and curiosity. She credits her success in great part to distance learning and the district's RSP program, which taught her how to read and to set and accomplish her goals. Ashley's future plans include earning a good scholarship so that she can attend college. Her career goal is to become an interior designer. Academically, Ashley is a rock star. Her grades are excellent and have remained solid through the pandemic. Her math and band teacher comment respectively, Ashley is always smiling. She has a very positive outlook and is a hard worker. And she is always ready to work, turn in all classwork on time, and is extremely reliable, and produces a superior product. Although the pandemic has kept Ashley from participating in everything she would like, she is kept active by hanging out with her family and doing fun family activities. She enjoys bike riding, playing board games, going for walks, and playing basketball with her brother. Ashley and her cousin are very close. They get together weekly and listen to or watch baseball. She plays trumpet in the school band and attends catechism. Her family is very appreciative of Ashley. Her dad comments, "I am so proud of my daughter that she has accomplished good grades. I hope she keeps them this way so she can attend a good college, something that I did not have the opportunity to dream about." Her mom adds, "I'm very proud of Ashley. I wish for all of her dreams to come true." And her cousin says, "Ashley is a very nice teen. We enjoy playing sports, watching movies, and baseball. I admire that she is a good student and very smart. We feel fortunate to have Ashley Vesquez Martin to be part of Petaluma Junior High and to present this caring and hardworking young woman to the board as Student of the Month for April 2021.
Hi, my name is Amelia Gorham, and I'm an 8th grader at Petaluma Junior High. We are honored to present Nicholas Sears as one of our Students of the Month for April 2021. He's a model PGHS student with an excellent attitude, terrific academic skills, and is kind and friendly. This is not Nick's first time being recognized. He has been honored before at nearly all 7 schools he has attended for his citizenship, schoolwork, and positive outlook. Nick enjoys school, and his transcript shows all A's. His culinary arts teacher says, since the 7th grade, Nick has proven himself to be an incredibly conscientious student. He always had the most mature insight and perspective, has an incredible sense of humor, and always volunteered to assist others in the classroom. The fact he loves to cook in his free time is an example of how Nick is not only a scholar, but a well-rounded individual. And his math teacher comments, Nicholas has been a cheerful, committed student all year. He works well with other students, participates fully in class, and even provides helpful reminders to the teacher upon occasion. Academically, Nick excels in every sense. He works hard and learns the concepts. Since the pandemic, Nick, like so many others, has not been able to participate in school or community activities, but he enjoys hanging out with family, doing woodwork, and playing video games. His plan is to attend trade school after he graduates and become an electrician. His parents add, Nick is very driven and strives to do his best with everything. He's a very helpful at home, assisting with chores and projects around the house. He always helps with his little brother and even cooks dinner when we are busy. At school, he strives for the best quality and will work on a project until he gets it right. When helping his brother with schoolwork or other projects, Nick holds him to the same high standards. We all love Nick. He's such an amazing kid. Nicholas Sears is one of those students who puts their best effort forward without fail. We are proud of Nick to have represent Petaluma Junior High as a Student of the Month.
All right, thank you. Thank you, students, for reading as well. Next up, we have Casa Grande High School.
The only one I couldn't find was Connor, but we've got everybody else.
Sorry, I wasn't here last time because of Zoom complications. Am I just reading for this month's Student of the Month or last month as well? Was this month?
I
Was
think the other one was read by the principal.
Okay, just making sure. Casa Grande is proud to present Ella Keffler for this Student of the Month. Ella is very honored to receive the March Student of the Month award. Ella has dedicated the past 4 years to both academics and athletics, transforming into a determined and highly motivated person. She is eternally grateful for the education that she received at Casa Grande. Ella is looking forward to leveraging this education towards studying environmental science at a university. Congratulations, Ella. Connor Glosser. Connor has been working hard for the past 6 years to be the best he can. Besides challenging courses and pushing his GPA to hold above a 4.0, he has been involved in sports and music. Connor's sports is wrestling. Every day in wrestling is a physical and mental struggle, but through the years, he has pushed through it all. He is the varsity wrestler for the 220 weight class, as well as team captain. Connor has also become a leader through band. He plays trombone in the symphonic and varsity jazz band. He is also the head drum major for the marching band, which sadly he has not had any activity this year due to the pandemic. However, last year he held the band game and the football games and Gaucho and Veterans Day Parade. After years of hard work, Connor achieved his goal of earning an appointment to the United States Air Force Academy. He will join the academy as part of the class of 2025. Connor plans to study aerospace engineering and to graduate from the academy as a second lieutenant with a bachelor's degree in science. Connor wishes to thank everyone who has helped him along the way. Congratulations, Connor.
Marcelli, are you also reading Cameron? Or do you have that, Dan?
I was not sent that.
Okay.
I can do that one. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Cameron, good evening. After graduating this June, Cameron plans to attend the University of California, Davis in the fall to study economics and communications. He is passionate about economics and finance and plans on pursuing a career in financial services. He is currently on the Casa Grande swim team and has loved playing a variety of sports throughout high school. Cameron works as a tutor babysitter in Sonoma and loves the opportunity that Zoom school has created for him to have this job. This year all around has definitely been a difficult one for Cameron, but it has been refreshing to see new and interesting opportunities born from the situation. Cameron has loved going to Casa and can't wait to be back on campus on April 19th. Congratulations, Cameron.
Thank you.
All right, thank you and congratulations, Casa kids. All right, next up we have Petaluma High School.
Looks like we're just missing Lucas.
Okay, I will start with Julia then. Julia Critchett is a senior at Petaluma High School. Julia has been part of the school's ASB program since her sophomore year, leading her to eventually become junior class vice president and ASB vice president. She has worked hard to create an inclusive and exciting environment for students on campus through her efforts in ASB and through the freshman mentoring program, Link Crew. Julia has distinguished herself as a helpful student by receiving Trojan of the Month her freshman year for acts of kindness, and now for receiving Student of the Month. Julia is excited for life after high school and plans to attend a 4-year college and study business administration and business marketing. She appreciates all her memories from PHS and is grateful for all the valuable connections she has made with both students and staff. Congratulations, Julia. And Lucas. Lucas is a senior enrolled at Petaluma High School and has been on the varsity wrestling team since he was a freshman. Lucas has kept very busy during this pandemic between taking care of his two steers he raises for FFA, wrestling, and working part-time at Barless Feeds. He has had some truly wonderful times at Petaluma High School and made some wonderful memories. Wrestling is a big part of his life and has helped shape him into the person he is today. This year is his 6th year in the sport, and he will truly miss it once he graduates. Lucas also loves mountain bike riding, and dirt biking. Both sports are a great way to get out in nature and stay healthy. Lucas does not quite know what the future will hold, but for him, but he is excited to find out. He feels well equipped for anything that life decides to throw my way, thanks to wonderful teachers, coaches, friends, and of course his family. He will always remember his time at Petaluma High School, both the good and the bad, even though the good outweighs the bad. Lucas is honored to be a Student of the Month for April, especially during these times. Congratulations, Lucas.
Thank you. I appreciate all the readers as well as all the students. Congratulations. You guys are all doing excellent. All right, so we are going to move on to an item in 2 years in the making since Caitlin first brought it up to the board, our menstrual products update.
Okay, thank you, Joanna. I'm going to pull up the PowerPoint. Can everybody see that okay? So this is really an update. Our focus was secondary. We are continuing to take a look at elementary. The secondary does include Mary Collins at Cherry Valley, since it is a K-8, and it also includes PACS as our 7-8 charter. So I'm just going to kind of walk you through school by school and what we found and what our goals are. So I'm starting with the junior highs. So Mary Collins at Cherry Valley, they're 6th through 8th grade in particular. They have 4 male restrooms, 4 female restrooms, and 2 gender neutral restrooms. And these are all student restrooms. They do not have any menstrual product dispensers installed at this time. Our goal will be to add 2. One in the female restrooms closest to the 6-8 wing, and one of the gender neutral restrooms. The cost here is about $650 per dispenser, and so the cost is basically 2 of those. We did not include the cost of filling the dispensers because we haven't really had an opportunity, given the pandemic, to analyze how much money the ongoing cost will be based on actual access and use of the products. So Petaluma Accelerated Charter School, they have 2 male restrooms, again, student restrooms, 2 female, 1 gender neutral, and they actually have 1 menstrual product dispenser installed. Our goal will be to add 2 to each of the female restrooms. Well, 1 additional to a female and 1 to the gender neutral. And again, the cost is about $1,374. And then Kenilworth, they actually have 6 male and 6 female restrooms. Remember, this school has about 800 students. They have one gender neutral. Our goal actually here will be to identify a restroom that can be converted into gender neutral near the quad area or near the main student area. They do not have any menstrual products dispensers installed, is what we found. So our goal will be to add 7 to the 6 female and to the 1 gender neutral, or at least one of the gender neutral. And the cost there is about $4,500. Petaluma Junior High School, they also have 6 male student restrooms and 6 female student restrooms and 1 gender neutral. Again, our goal will be to add a gender neutral as well, to convert one of the staff restrooms into gender neutral. And then our goal will be to add 7 menstrual product dispensers in the female and the gender neutral. Currently, they don't have any, and it's the same cost as Petaluma, as Kenilworth. At the high schools, we started with San Antonio and Valley Oaks. They combined have 3 male restrooms, 3 female student restrooms, and 2 gender neutral. They currently do not have any dispensers. Our goal will be to add 5 in the 3 female and the 2 gender neutral, and the cost is about $3,400. At Carpe Diem Sonoma Mountain combined, they each have 1 male restroom, student restroom, and 1 female student restroom. They don't have any gender neutral. Their facility really does not accommodate that because their facilities are so small. They don't have any menstrual product dispensers installed at this time, and our goal would be to add 1 to each. At Casa Grande, they have a lot of student restrooms, 17 male and 17 female. Sorry for my typo there. They have 4 gender neutral restrooms identified. And our goal, they currently have 2 menstrual product dispensers installed. Our goal will be to add 10 so that all the gender neutral have them, and then at least 10 of the student female restrooms. And we would spread those out since there are so many. The cost is about $6,900. At Petaluma High School, they have fewer male restrooms and a larger number, 8 male and 12 female restrooms, 1 gender neutral. Currently identified, we would, our target would be to add another gender neutral restroom, and then to install 11, some of the female, and then of course the gender neutral. And currently they don't have any installed, and that's about $7,600, just under $7,600. So in summary, we believe that we need to add 53 dispensers in the gender neutral and female student restrooms. The cost is about $36,000. We also believe we need to add additional gender neutral restrooms, basically converting 3 existing staff restrooms, not all on campus, but across the district, into gender neutral. So that's it. Any questions?
That is awesome. Thank you, Chris. One of my first questions was going to be to make sure that we would have some in gender neutral bathrooms, but you remembered from our conversation. So I really appreciate that that's made clear, and that we're going to have some more gender neutral student restrooms.
Would the product be free?
Yes, the dispensers that we have are basically Twist, and that's why we don't really know what the ongoing cost will be, because we'll have to take a look at utilization. We installed them a little over a year ago, but then, you know, we've been in a pandemic, so it's been hard to really assess what the actual usage would be. So we'll have a better idea. Our goal will be to get the purchase going and then to install them this summer.
Awesome. And then we can also always, there's some different nonprofits and community organizations, and I'm sure there are some families that would donate pads and tampons and whatnot too, if we ever put out the need out to the community.
Absolutely. And we just need to make sure that we know what ones are compatible with the dispensers that we'll install.
I'm just surprised how few dispensers we had, you know.
Me too.
across our high schools.
That's terrible. Yeah.
Wow.
It was,
I thought we had 0, so we had more than I thought.
yeah.
Thank you, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. That was really interesting. Wow.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Any other questions or comments? No. All right. We are going to move on to the school reopening update. Is that Cliff? No?
Yeah, that will be Cliff and Jason. And then
Oh, and Jason. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so I just wanted to give an update on where we're at since we reopened in hybrid. We just started week 2 for secondary schools, week 3 for elementary, and so far so good. Things have been going really well. Kids seem to be excited to be back on campus. It's hard to tell with the mask on, but I think as was described earlier, some kids have smiling eyes, so you could kind of see it on their face. But teachers are excited as well to have kids back in person. Here at the district office, we split up the schools and we went around on those first couple days back just to pop in and see how things were going and take a look in the classrooms and just kind of observe the transition. And the schools were well prepared. There's a bit of continuing education going on, making sure that families and students are completing the daily health symptom and exposure screening through Parent Square. So for high school kids, they can submit it on their own. For students younger than that, the parent has to submit it. So that's just one of those things we're going to continue to educate families on, continuing to do that on a daily basis so that we're all aware, and that if any of our students are exhibiting symptoms or have been exposed to someone who's COVID positive, to keep those students home, to keep us all safe. So, we're going to continue to do that. Specifically, I wanted to bring up, as part of the reopening phase-in process, the county guidance that was put out. If you recall, when we were planning, we were still in the purple. So we were hoping to get into the red, and we were developing our plan. And then we've now since moved into the orange, and the county did put out some phased in kind of guidance for if things are going well, if there's not outbreaks at the schools, how you can continue to phase in. Granted, we only have 5.5 weeks left of school, but the guidance is still there. So particularly at the 2 comprehensive high schools, just by observation those first few days, there was definitely fewer students that decided to come back in person for hybrid at the secondary level than at the high school level, as compared to the junior high and as compared to elementary. So roughly, kind of, if I just gave a ballpark percentage overall, we have upwards of 80%, if not higher, at the elementary level that are back in person. At the junior high level, we're in the high 60s. And then at the high school level, we're only at about 36% at CASA and about 45% at Petaluma High who decided to come back in person. And as you know, we split those students into 2 learning teams. Learning Team 1 students attend 2 days a week on Mondays and Thursdays. Learning Team 2 students attend 2 days a week on Tuesdays and Fridays, and all students distance learn on Wednesdays. So that first week, as we saw kind of the small number of students on campus at the high schools, we wanted to take a closer look to see when we reach that next phase of possible kind of phasing back in a little more, mathematically, could we allow students to come more than just 2 days a week? What would that look, what would that make our class sizes look like? And as far as spacing in the classroom, social distancing between desks, would that be possible? So our plan up until we got into the orange and until the state changed their guidance was 6 feet of space in each classroom. So roughly most classrooms could fit between 14 and upwards of 20 students, all spaced out 6 feet apart. And of course, that depends on the type of desks or if they're tables, right? There's some restrictions based off of what kind of furniture you have in the classroom. But roughly, we were planning for kind of a maximum, if you will, of about 16 per class, comfortably with 6 feet of space. Well, I guess comfortably would be in quotes. But then the guidance changed to you could go down to 3 feet of space And at that point, our plan was still to maintain 6. So as we looked at the numbers, we analyzed not only how many students chose to come back at the high school level, but what would that look like if they all came every day, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday? How big would that make the classes? Could we fit that many students in those classrooms spaced at least 3 feet apart? We took an initial look at that last week. We also looked at the attendance rates last week. So we had on paper who was going to come back, and then we looked at who actually came back and how many students are sitting in our classrooms. So I did want to share with you, briefly a little bit of that information. So I'm going to pull this out. So is that big enough? Most people, I can make it a little bigger. Ellen wants it bigger. All right, let's go 150. A little better. Okay, so
Perfect.
Okay, thanks. For clarity and transparency, these numbers were ran right before we came back. So these may have changed slightly. There are, some students who chose to come back who were on distance learning, and there may have been some that chose to go the other route. So granted, these aren't as accurate and up to date as today, but they are recent. So what we're looking at here is by period. Let me hide that one. We're just gonna look at the 2 high schools. So this is CASA. So for 0 period, we've got a column for Learning Team 1 students. We've got a column for Learning Team 2 students. And then if they were together, how many total would potentially be in a classroom at one time? So what we really want to look at are these gray columns with these totals. And if I just do kind of a quick perusal, I've highlighted in red any cell where there's a classroom that has more than 16. So at CASA, those numbers are actually really small. There's just a few, and a few of these are PE, so that's less of an issue as far as spacing in a classroom. So if these numbers were 100% accurate, we would have a couple situations where we would need to look at the classroom, the seating arrangements, and make sure that we could fit that many students at least 3 feet apart. So we may have to look at what type of furniture and tables we have in that room. But you can see here, these individual classes are definitely, smaller groups, 4 students, 6, 2, 1, 2, 3, right? Separately, small, put them together, you get a little bit more of kind of a medium class size. At Petaluma High, the situation is a little different. There are more students back in person than at CASA. So if I scroll through this, you'll see a few more of these highlighted red cells. There's a PE class at 24. There's a human interaction class at 21. There's a science class at 24. So there are a few more areas here that are problematic. If we were to allow students to come back 4 days a week, that we would have to look at to see if we can actually fit everyone. But for the most part, as you can see, it looks like it could be something to look at. If I compare that to the junior high classes, you'll just see these are larger already because more students opted to come back. So this isn't something right now we would be looking at for junior high. With the spacing limitations right now, most of these junior high classes would definitely be on the larger end. So that's one thing I wanted to show. The attendance. So these are the 4 days in person last week. And I'm missing some labels here, but these are, so on 419, those 3 columns represent first period, second period, third period. On 420, 4, 5, and 6, 422, 1, 2, 3, 423, 4, 5, 6. So if you just scroll through these, you can see These are how many students actually were in person at one time. And again, there's an occasional larger group. The learning teams aren't exactly divided half and half. So there may be a larger group here, and on the next day it's a smaller group. But there's a handful here and there. Petaluma High, again, they have more students back in person, so you see a few more of those, larger numbers. So if I summarize it, these are the classes that we would need to look at a little closer. I've hidden the teachers' names, but these are the sizes, these are the subjects, these are the periods. Actually, that's fourth grade. So we would have to look a little bit more at these to see if we have space, and if not, what would we do about it if we were to phase in at some point and allow students to come more days a week. We did bring it up last week with PFT leadership just to kind of broach the subject and look a little bit at the information. We reconvened the secondary distance learning. I don't know why we still call it distance learning. Maybe we should call it the hybrid learning group now, but we reconvened today and just talked about it, looked at some of the data. We weren't necessarily looking for, to take a vote or anything like that, but I can report out, and I think you'll hear tonight, maybe in public comment from some of the group members, but the feeling at large was definitely a number of concerns about changing, the mode with a little bit of time left in the school year, in a number of areas, but in general, more of a desire to continue status quo with our current hybrid plan through the end of the school year, with the focus on returning, next year more full time. So, we definitely didn't come to any type of consensus about, yes, let's do this. Let's come back next week and let kids who want to come back more. But we did want to stay true to our process and let everyone have a say, and we did that this afternoon. So that's where we're at right now. Not sure. I do want to take a look at more recent information. Again, like I said, that first spreadsheet I showed you was from right before they all came back. So I do want to take another look to see how many students have opted to come back since then, that they've changed some of these numbers. And then we also want to make sure that families know that, they can come back in person if they chose distance learning. I know there's a little bit of word of mouth going on. There may be some families and students who were, had their reasons for staying in distance learning, who may want to change their mind. And clearly at the high school level, we have space for that. So we still want to make sure families know they have that option. So that's pretty much the gist of it. I don't know if there's any specific questions.
I have a question about, like you were showing the numbers of the kids that actually attended. So are those kids that said that they were going to attend and then chose to stay home? Are they Zooming in still, or are they just like totally absent?
No, they Zoom. Yeah, I mean, so what that wasn't showing was who said they were going to come, who didn't come. That was just physical bodies in the classroom. So there could have been some students who were totally absent, ill, didn't Zoom in, didn't join at all. And if so, they would have been marked absent. But in general, they can jump on the Zoom if they can't make it to school. And we would recommend they do that. If they don't feel well and they need to stay home, we would prefer that they jump on the Zoom so they can still get the instruction. But yeah, so those numbers were physical bodies in the classroom. I didn't show you who was at home marked, present distance learning. I just showed you who was present in person. Yeah, Maddie?
Thank you for doing this. This is really, really good information. and it's detailed. So I can imagine it takes a while to do this. I just keep coming back to we're in such a short time frame, and to change it again, I just feel like the parents, the teachers, the students have all been doing different things and changing with the pandemic, and it just feels like we're so close to the end. There's still infection out there. If you did the dynamic within the classroom that teachers, I would imagine, have gotten used to, would then change again, so that then they would have possibly half their kids in class and half their kids in Zoom, which would require a tremendous amount of work on their part again to switch again, which I think they were somewhat ready for. But then, I just think it would just be difficult and jarring to once again have to change the way that your instruction is delivered. And we're so close. And it just feels, I don't know, it just feels unnecessary to me in a lot of different ways.
Yeah,
Now,
I can share that there were, plenty of our committee members who share those sentiments and more. So yeah, I definitely see where people are coming from there. Sheldon?
Yeah, I got several questions. First, just a point of clarification. Besides the physical limitations of a classroom, I thought another constraint was the amount of cohort mixing. And so the kids would essentially double the amount of their mixing. Is that not an issue in Orange?
No, that's a great question. So I should have clarified. So the guidance is, yes, we're supposed to remain with our stable groups for a certain amount of time. And then if there aren't any outbreaks and if things are going well, that then gets loosened up. So we're talking about if, we continue this for the foreseeable future, there is a point where we can loosen those restrictions. And so, yes, in essence, students would be doubling the stable groups. If they came back full time, 4 days a week, they would be in 6 stable groups instead of 3.
And that's within the parameters of the public health guidance.
Right. We couldn't start off that way, but if, cross your fingers, things go well and there aren't any outbreaks, that option is open up to us. So that's why we were looking at that.
Yeah. And help me clarify who would get, if we went down this road, who would get this choice? Is it just those who have already opted in some way to be in person? And on top of that, would it be an all or nothing kind of a choice? That is, would everyone have to come back 4 days, or would a student have an option to stay in A days only and be distance learning in B days?
Yeah, I mean, we obviously haven't said anything hard and fast. We're just looking at the information, but we discussed those same points. And yes, it would be an option. It wouldn't be required. So there are clearly some families who, through childcare arrangements or through work arrangements, prefer one of the learning teams over the other, and maybe wouldn't choose to come back all 4 days because it doesn't work for them. While there may be others that do, would want to come all 4 days. So we would leave it open to, each family's decision. It wouldn't be required. And then that was 2 of the things. What was the other thing? Did I miss something?
Whether those choices would be limited to the ones who are already coming back now, or would we reopen that question for everyone?
So good point. So we were thinking in terms of just opening it up to the ones who chose to come back already. We know that there may be some that if the choice originally was 4 days a week, maybe they would have chose that over distance learning. But for now, with the numbers that we have currently of the ones coming back in person, with the exception of a few things we would need to look at, it would work. If we opened up the door to everyone, then it may not work because we may reach those high numbers in many classes and then not be able to do it at all. So it gets a little messy that way, but our thought originally was just those who already chose to come back would give them the option.
Well, I appreciate your looking into this. And have there been any ideas thrown out yet about what would be possibilities for those large classrooms that are above 17 or 16?
Yeah, so it depends on, I mean, I can tell you a couple of those are PE classes. So obviously there's a little more space, and especially if they're outside, those aren't going to be issues as much as interior. We haven't done anything concrete. I do know we purchased individual triangular desks. I don't think we've deployed them all. A few of those classes are lab classes with lab tables. You know, so we would have to go out and look individually each of those classes. So we're potentially talking about swapping furniture. That'd be one solution. If there are larger areas on campus, whether those are multis, you know, gyms, libraries, if there are spaces like that that are larger that aren't being used, that's a potential solution as well. But just haven't really, you know, dove into it too deep yet. Just trying to highlight how many situations we would have to mitigate.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the look into this, and you know, I can say as a parent that I think a lot of families would go for this.
When are you thinking about, if you do choose to go this route, when would it start?
I don't think we've set a date.
We haven't set a date. We wanted to look at the data and want to be, I mean, we definitely want to be cautious, you know, in our approach, but we also want to recognize that you know, we're trying to seek that balance. And so we would notify the board what we were thinking. Try probably get some feedback from each one of you and reach out to you on an individual basis. Our guidelines allow us to do this right now. But we're also very, you know, as Trustee Cloud said, there's a lot of unknowns in all of this. And my sense is that we probably want to get through another week to make sure that we hit the 3-week period first so that we can see what that looks like. But I will tell you that we're not as driven by, you know, we're trying to do this in a way that is in the best interest of the student. And so that's a tricky one, because we're also, I mean, we're acutely aware that we're moving into May, but we don't want that to be necessarily a driving issue. It's, you know, because anytime that a student has in the best learning environment for them, whatever that environment is time well spent. So
the contact time stays the same. I mean, instructional time, I mean, stays the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's that.
Thank you, Cliff.
Thanks.
All right, thank you, Cliff. Moving on to comments from the public on non-agendized items. So I'm going to read our board policy for public comment. Under Government Code Section 54954.3, members of the public have the right to address the governing board on any items of interest, providing it relates to the subject matter jurisdiction of the school district. While Government Code allows speakers to criticize the district's policies, procedures, programs, services, and/or employees, the district does have a policy specific to complaints against employees. Should comments from the public pertain to a specific district employee, the board requests that the complaint first be submitted in writing to the employee's immediate supervisor for investigation. If the comment is about something that is not on the agenda, it will be heard only during the public comment on non-agendized items, period. Once that part of the meeting is over, comments will only be taken on agenda items during the discussion of those items. The board values public comments, and although we cannot take action or discuss items not on the agenda, we listen carefully and appreciate input from the public. Public comments are subject to a 4-minute per person limit or 20-minute limit per subject matter. So we're going to open the chat. And if you have a comment on a non-agendized item, put your first and last name in the chat, as well as what topic you would like to comment towards. And then Gary, I'll allow you to decide when to close the chat.
Andrea, if you could put in what your topic is, please. We'll make sure that we get you in there. So we'll close it after you get your clarification in there. Okay. So we'll close it down, public comment for non-agendized items.
All right, first up is Sumaya.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I was just listening in, and I wanted to comment about the 4 days a week. If you guys are not considering opening full time, like a lot of the other schools are now considering and or doing, I would definitely recommend opening the 4 days a week, but to not follow the guidelines to the 3-foot rule, which would allow more students to come in, would be a great detriment to the rest of the students, and to not open it up to the rest of the students. A lot of them opted out because they didn't find it ideal. I mean, to only come in 2 days a week for 3 hours, they figured, why bother? Including my own child. It wasn't enough to sit there in the classroom, to do Zoom in the classroom while in front of the teacher. To sit there 4 days a week would be, again, a better idea. We need to get to the point, we need to have a plan for next year. As parents, we need to know what the plan is for next year also. We'd like to see the schools open full-time next year, the starting of the school year, not distance learning, not Zoom. We need to be in the classrooms full-time. We're just about in yellow. We only have about 200 and something cases throughout all of Sonoma County. They are telling people who are vaccinated not to need to wear masks outdoors and around a lot of people anymore. So we need to stop putting fear in everyone and saying, okay, it's time to get our kids back in the classroom, time to make them feel comfortable, time to educate them the way they need to be educated. And that's the responsibility of our board, putting them first. And then putting them first, that means pushing the limit here and saying, okay, we might not have enough room in the classroom, but we're going to make room to make sure everyone can come back. And those who want to come back, put a survey out. Say, hey, if we open up full time, what's going to happen? Who's actually going to come back? If we're only going to open up 4 days a week, who's going to come back? Put those surveys out and see who's actually going to come back, instead of guessing and making up your own ideas of what these parents are actually saying. Ask the parents, ask the children, because these children are actually telling you they want to be in the classroom. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to Loretta.
Thank you. I have some things I wanted to bring to the board's attention. The district is paying an attorney for negotiations, which surely must come at quite a cost, many times the salary of most of our classified people. Is this a wise way to use our funds? Over the recent years, our members have had to change their healthcare plans so they will still be able to afford their rent or mortgage and be able to feed and clothe their families. Many of our members are actually taking home less take-home pay now than they did 10 years ago. We have been there throughout this pandemic from the beginning, with many of us working at our sites and continuing to make sure that this district functions at so many levels. The district, by its own data, has quite a healthy reserve, well over the state required minimum of 3%, and it is projected to grow over the next 2 to 3 years. I also want to say that this district has developed the habit of hiring new employees on step F of the salary schedule. I believe they are having to do that because they are not able to find people willing to accept the positions at the lower steps. And finally, CSEA requests that you take another look at your offer and return to the table with something more reasonable. Thank you for your time.
Okay, we are moving on to Sheila.
Hello, good evening. I am here today to express appreciation that the PCX district is holding a training to inform their staff of their mandated responsibility to report Title VI violations. I'm also here today because it is not enough. The idea that the college and career counselors are the people that the students are supposed to report to when they have their rights violated is short-sighted at best. There needs to be trained counselors who help students who have been harassed. They should either be psychologists or specially trained staff members. They need to be adults that the students feel safe with, which means that at the very least, these adults should be culturally competent, but ideally they should be members of those marginalized communities that are consistently targeted at our schools. There also needs to be more bilingual aids to help students not only academically, but socially and emotionally as well. I have had 3 children graduate from CASA. My 4th is graduating this year. All of them have experienced some form of hate bias, from misogyny to anti-Semitism to racism, at the hands of other students and staff at CASA. My youngest was racially harassed over a period of months. It was obvious to other students, and it should have been to staff as well, but no one ever said anything. When my daughter was pushed to the breaking point, she reported the boy, who received minimal consequences. She, however, continues to carry the trauma of these events. Even after reporting this boy, she was placed into groups with him, including being alone with him in breakout rooms on Zoom. As a result, she's decided to graduate a year early. This is not a tribute to CASA, but rather a condemnation of a system that doesn't work. She doesn't and did not feel protected or seen or heard, and so her solution was to finish high school as soon as possible. She was able to do this because she has privilege enough not to have to work after school so she could take extra classes. What would have happened if my daughter didn't have that privilege, or if she didn't speak English? I'm angry at myself for not doing more to stop this from happening to my children, to other children. I am frustrated that our district, our town, and our county is so concerned with litigation founded in white supremacy that we look the other way when racism, homophobia, anti-Semitism, etc. happen in front of us. I want the district to stop making excuses and pushing back timelines. You have funds and knowledge to make a change. It is too late for my daughter, but it is not too late for other kids coming up behind her. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. Moving on to Nicole.
Mute.
Hello, my name is George Marzo.
Hi, this is Nicole, and I have my student George here, and he's going to take the floor for a sec.
I'm a junior at Petaluma High, and I'm one of the kids that's been back in person. And for me personally, I feel like I'd be in favor of going back 4 days a week, just because it's personally, the learning is more beneficial in person. And also, I feel like the students have, it's been nice just seeing my teachers and peers also, and being able to get like the real like face-to-face connection with students and other teachers. And I also feel like the students would be appreciative of it and like, respect the guidelines necessary to go back 4 days a week.
George, do you think the kids would follow the rules?
Yeah, I think so. Just because kids are willing to, especially the kids that are already willing to be back on campus now, they'd be willing to do it just so they could be back on campus even more.
So George is a Tuesday, Friday student. And after he went his first Tuesday, he came home and was like all smiles and said how great it was. So I want to thank everybody for the efforts in getting these kids back to school. So then Wednesday is a Zoom day and Thursday was a Zoom day for him. And he said it was such a bummer to be back on Zoom that he couldn't wait to go on Friday. So I just wanted to share that, right? I hope that you engage the students and who are coming back on campus to see how they feel about going 4 days a week. And also, I feel like it's probably better for the district to try, because if we're at all going to get to full time in the fall, we need to work out the kinks, right? We need to get these kids on campus. We need to get them moving around. We need to all understand how it's going to work. And the only way to do that is to try, right? So while it's change, we're all going to be changing anyway, right? And I do feel like while maybe the leadership team didn't express it, I think there are lots of teachers who want to be back a lot more than they are, or see their students every day. Thank you. George, anything else?
No, thank you very much for getting us back in school.
Yep, we appreciate it.
Okay, next up is Sandy.
Good evening, everybody. This is Sandy Sullivan. My daughter also chose to be back in person. She is a Team 2 student, had the same experience that George was talking about. And one comment that she made was, if we were to go back 4 days a week, it wouldn't be different, as you were talking earlier, for the teachers, because they're already teaching 4 days a week and Zooming to the other kids that are at home. So the only difference really to the teachers, the only change would be that they have more kids in person. And the difference for the kids is going to be magnificent, just huge. And again, like Nicole, I'm going to reiterate, I'm deeply concerned about fall. Everyone keeps saying our goal is to be back full-time in person. And if changing now to go 4 days a week is so monumental and so difficult, I don't understand how we're going to do it in the fall. I don't understand why it's so difficult. Rancho Cotati High School was able to make their change almost immediately to combine their groups into 2. And I think that we need to look outside the box a little, make this happen. And it's not such a short time till the end of the year for the kids. It may seem like it to an adult, but 6-8 weeks to a kid is a long time. And every day that they're there in person is huge in their lives. I think that we need to step it up and make it happen for them and make sure that we are on task for the fall. I've requested to please see an actual plan, a resolution, to know that we are going to be full-time in the fall. If some catastrophe happened and that couldn't happen, that's understandable, but we need to know that we have an actual plan and resolution in place so that we can make our decisions. Marin County's full-time in person, Healdsburg, St. Helena's full-time in person and has been since October. Our numbers are there, we can make it happen. And I just need to see this board make it a resolution. Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Phoebe.
Oh, good evening. I just want to echo what some of the previous speakers have talked about. My son is a sophomore at Petaluma High, and he did choose to return to school and was thrilled. I think I sent everyone an email. So I thank everyone who I know worked very hard to get our schools reopened. And I have a deep concern about the fall plans as well. I feel like we're at a point where this board and the leadership team at the district needs to come forward with a concrete plan. Everyone keeps referring to the fall as if we get back in person or hybrid. And I know counselors are planning for hybrid as well as full-time in-person learning. So that makes difficult for the counseling departments as well as trying to form classes. I think we've become way too complacent that district learning or remote instruction, however you want to describe it, that it's an adequate way of teaching and learning. Again, it worked in an emergency and we're happy that we've been able to accomplish it. I think it's great going forward to know how to distant learn or remote instruction, but I think we can all agree who's in education that it is not what our schools were set up to do. You know, people pivoted and figured it out, but we can see that, you know, students aren't engaged, students aren't socializing, students aren't having that deep connection with teachers and peers and staff. So I think we really need to dig deep and figure it out come the fall. As you know, as Governor Newsom has announced, come June 15th, there's going to be no killer tier system if things keep going in the direction that they're going. So there aren't going to be color tiers. There's going to be no reason to not have our schools open completely, considering any health and safety guidelines that are out there. So I would strongly, hopefully this board will be considering a resolution or some sort of concrete plans that they can share with parents and families and students and teachers and staff in this district sooner than later. Thank you very much, everyone.
Okay, next up we have Sandra.
Hello, can you hear me? I just wanted to talk to the board tonight about our classified coworkers. We all know that there is absolutely no way any school office could run without them. They're the first person we go to. They are vital for students' success. In education, we talk a lot about equality versus equity. And there's even a little picture of the one kid needs the bench to get to seat to the top, that it doesn't have to be equal, it needs to be equitable. So when you offer classified people who make far less, the exact same amount of salary increase, it may be equal, it's not equitable. I looked at if a classified person makes $15 an hour, and I hope they all do, if they work the same number of days as a teacher, they would get about $22,320. A 2% raise for them would be $446. That's not much. That's not equitable. A teacher at the top of the salary, the 2% raise was $1,800. I just estimated $150,000 for an admin. We can find the average. That would be $3,000. So that's all 2%, but it's not an equitable change in how someone living. One could argue that the lowest paid need to have a higher salary so that they can begin to make up some differences. So PFT Executive Council is behind helping our classified members and fellow workers get a better living wage. And also when I hear about a lawyer, as someone who negotiated with that probably very same lawyer, I'm not sure it is, it's not helpful, it's detrimental. So I would consider having parties sit down and talk and think about equity, not equal. Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Sarah.
Hi, good evening, everyone. There's a couple things I wanted to check in with you all about. First of all, I wanted to thank you for addressing menstrual equity in our schools. I think it's really important that you're doing this, and so I applaud and thank you for following suit with a lot of different schools in the country. I want to go further and say that we need to have menstrual equity in products in all bathrooms, all genders, not just non-gendered and female bathrooms, because not all women menstruate, and not all menstruators are women. It's really important that those who need to use these products do not need to only be pigeonholed into the fewer senses of bathrooms that seem to be the non-gendered ones. So thank you for keeping that in mind as well. I also wanted to say thank you to PCS and the schools for participating in the ad hoc committee with the city. And I want to uplift that one of the top voted initiatives was community engagement. And to that end, I want to address that efforts to come together with different pillars of leadership to combat discrimination. I urge PCS to show up and stand up in solidarity with other school districts, Old Adobe Unified School Districts, and other districts in our community in response to all kinds of discrimination and these challenging responses to reopening at this time. We need to all work together as a community and as a school community, particularly since all of the districts feed into our schools. In regards to reopening, I would like to say I'm really happy with everything that's been going on. My kids have been very happy with going back to school. They are also finding that the transition in slowly is actually all right because it's been such a big change. So changing in at a slower pace has been all right for them. I also want to say that they would go back 4 days and they would go back full time, and they're happy to be able to make that change in a paused and thoughtful manner. The change up, they have school in the morning one day, school in the afternoon and the other day, and every other day it's morning, afternoon, and having that change has been challenging, depending on whether or not they're in person or on Zoom. And I just wanted to say that we trust the district and the board to make conscientious decisions. And as I listen to multiple different board meetings in our county as well as in the city, I hear parents and families talking about other districts and what they're doing, and these districts and what they're doing. And what I'm hearing is everybody's having a challenging time. Everybody's having a hard time. This is very complex. Each school district, each county, each community is so different that comparison between them is really a hard thing to do. And so I know that each one of you are working so hard, harder than you ever have, from the teachers to the classified staff to the administration, to make sure that everybody's needs are being met. And I want to thank you for that work. And I want you to know that we are patient. And also, you know, that I'm never going to let anything slide. I like to talk to you all about all sorts of things. And I want you to know that I'm here in support of the decisions that you all make. Thank you so much.
Okay, next up we have either Andrea or Andrea. Not sure how to pronounce that.
Yes, hi, my name is Andrea, and I'm speaking on behalf of your district students and parents who deserve an in-person education to the greatest extent possible. I would not consider the hybrid option of twice a week for 3 hours as providing in-person education to the greatest extent possible. I heard you mention a survey, but did you send a survey asking what students would return for 4 days or 5 days a week instead of the hybrid option? In-person education should be a priority, not distance learning. Currently, there are 321 active COVID cases in our county, of which 70 cases are in Petaluma. 70 active cases in Petaluma. Yet a 5-day-a-week schedule cannot be implemented. Our county is in the orange tier. Children are playing sports, eating indoors, flying on planes for hours. We can watch movies, work out inside gyms, and go to concerts, but yet our children may only attend school for 6 hours a week. It's time to do better, and you need to do better for the students. Show them you care by implementing 4 to 5 days a week of in-person education. Even though there is only 5 weeks left of school, it's over a month less of time behind a screen, not being depressed or engaged. What about the seniors? This is their last year to see their teachers and their peers before entering their next chapter of life. Please make it memorable, because you can. It is safe to open full time. We all know this. All teachers and staff have been vaccinated, and this is as good as it gets. Napa High has been back full time since last October with 0 outbreaks. Marin High has been open full time for the past 2 weeks, and now St. Vincent and Cardinal Newman high schools are now open full time. The state CDC and our county health department all recommend 3 feet for schools. I asked the district board of trustees, are you representing the parents and families that elected you for the very seat that you're sitting in? Can you do better? I ask you, is 6 hours a week the very best your district can do? I ask you all to re-evaluate the school schedule. It's what your students deserve. Please get your students back to their classrooms with their teachers and peers they miss and adore so much. Just think of those happy faces and beautiful smiles that can transpire simply by offering 4 to 5 days a week. I would like to remind you all that education is not a privilege. It is a human right. Education as a human right means The right to an in-person education is legally guaranteed for all without any discrimination. I'd like to end with a quote by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about the things that matter. Stop being silent and open your schools to the best of your ability. We all know you can do better. Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Sal.
Hello. Sal Andropoulos, they them pronouns with Petaluma Tide North Bay LGBTQI families. Just want to thank the district for the menstrual product update and all the work that went into that. It's great to hear that these products are going to be made available to students and also available in gender neutral restrooms. And kind of echoing what Sarah said a minute ago, just want to say that the district should also just ensure equal access to these products for all genders and in all restrooms, including boys or men's restrooms. Because the products may be utilized by transmasculine or non-binary students, for example. And transgender students have the right to use the restroom that matches their gender. And while some may choose to use the gender neutral restroom, trans students shouldn't be required to use the gender neutral restroom. And if that's the only place they can safely access menstrual products, then that may effectively force them to. And so it's about equal access and the mental health impacts that these kinds of inequities have on trans and non-binary students who already experience significant mental health disparities. So just wanted to highlight that and thank you for the presentation on that.
Okay, next up we have Krista.
Hello, good evening. How are you all? It's great to see you. I wanted to talk with you this evening about the elementary CASP testing. I am a secondary person, but I have an elementary family member. And I just want to say, in consideration of Mr. Sutter, I have a great deal of respect for his position and everything that he's been trying to do. Last week, Jason Sutter sent an information to all staff about testing the 3rd through 6th graders with using the CASP test. And I just have to say that I listened to Mr. Sutter talk about his position on this, and I can appreciate the need to assess our 3rd through 6th graders. I can appreciate the need to identify learning loss and when and where that's occurring. I heard him say that he's concerned about allocating resources, that decisions have to be made about where we might need to hire an additional aide or add some additional resources at different sites. However, I was really struck by the response of some of my elementary colleagues, and I feel that I just would like to say that over spring break, our elementary teachers at all levels, but especially 3rd through 6th, and not especially, let's just say all of our elementary teachers made plans to bring students back to campus for in-person social interaction. And what I've seen just in, let's say, the Valley Vista feed that Ms. Haugen has done such an excellent job sharing the activities that are going on campus. Students are outside, they're in the garden, they're doing art, they have hands-on science projects, they have hands-on math activities, they are active, they are happy, they are moving around. That is exactly why we wanted all of these students, elementary, secondary, everyone to return, and to plan to test students on a computer for 2 of the last weeks in May. I understand that it's, we could say it's only 4.5 hours, but it's not only 4.5 hours. There's preparation that has to happen with the students to get them ready. In other words, we're taking a tremendous amount of their remaining time to do something that doesn't feel fully necessary. I would much rather forego the CASP testing for the 3rd through 6th graders this spring. We do have other measures. The state allows for other measures. Mr. Sutter has spoken about, the Star Renaissance and really truly, we know that there's learning loss. We know where the learning loss is. We know that some sites and some students are experiencing more learning loss than others. But what the students are doing right now at school in their classrooms is exactly the opposite of learning loss. These are the learning gains. And I feel like this is the time of year where we really have to allow for those things to happen, honor the teachers who took the time to plan these activities, honor the children who are there for those experiences, and please let's pass on the CASP testing for this May. Thank you.
Okay, that looks like it's it for that comment section. So we're going to move on to reports on activities and correspondence of school board members. So the different activities we took part in the last 2 weeks: Community Achievement Awards, Latino Family Educational Summit, CSBA broadband webinar, Circle Up, Budget Advisory, LPAC, sorry, probably LCAP, Earth Day at the Petaluma Art Center, Stop It app demonstration, and Climate Action Petaluma goal setting webinar. All right, so now we have comments from the public on consent agenda items. So I will again ask you to put your first and last name, the topic you'd like to speak towards from the consent agenda, and then Gary, you can decide when to close it.
Okay, let's close the agenda, the consent agenda. We have one topic, one speaker.
Okay, looks like Amanda.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me? Hi, my name is Amanda Dowdy. I am currently a 6th grade teacher at McNear, and I have been working for Petaluma City Schools for the last 10 years. I am also a former PCS student. I attended McDowell Elementary School, Kenilworth Junior High, and I'm a proud graduate of Casa Grande. I am here this evening to speak about 6th grade outdoor ed. This has been a time-honored tradition since as far back as when I was a 6th grader at McDowell. It is an experience I cherish and have very fond memories from my childhood. It is an experience I believe all students should have as they exit elementary school and transition into a more challenging time in their life and their education. I was very surprised to hear last week that the cabinet approved an overnight trip for 6th graders from Pengrove, clearly not taking into consideration the effects that decision would have on all other students within this district. 5 years ago, one elementary school was unable to fund their 6th grade outdoor ed trip. The board then stated that next year it was an equity issue, and that if one 6th grade group could not go, then no one goes. They also stated that this trip is a great opportunity for elementary schools to group together and take a trip with one another before starting junior high. Since that time, as a 6th grade team have made it a priority to have discussions and collaborate to try and ensure that all 6th graders have similar experiences before entering junior high. To allow one group to take part in this trip without other groups having the means to do so presents major equity issues. I was happy to see the cabinet backpedaled with an email sent this afternoon stating, quote, "If you are concerned about money, the district will be able to help find solutions so you can plan something special for your kids. Don't let money be the obstacle," end quote. It costs approximately between $10,000 to $15,000 for an outdoor ed field trip. Am I to believe the district is willing to pay for each elementary school's outdoor ed trip? In addition, From my own experience, it takes months of planning, gathering paperwork, and filling out forms to make a trip of this magnitude possible. At this point, with approximately 3 weeks to get this figured out, I have to ask, what is available in our area? Can we book it in time? Can they accommodate 60 students under their facility guidelines? Will chaperones be allowed? What about transportation? What about our students in distance learning? This seems like a logistical nightmare that teachers cannot take on in the last few weeks of school while trying to teach and prepare for testing. I would also like to argue that under the circumstances of the past year, we need to be even more mindful of equity among our schools. So my question to you is, how is the district going to ensure the rest of the sixth graders this year are afforded the same opportunity? Thank you.
Okay, so we are moving on to the consent agenda. Can I get a motion?
I move to approve the consent agenda by consolidated motion.
Get a second?
Second.
Okay, any comments, questions on the consent agenda? I had one about the Portland State University, the teaching agreement. What is that you,
Sure.
Matthew?
Yes. I think we have, I believe it's an online, someone getting their online degree who lives in the area and has requested, would like to be a student teacher. I think it may be counseling or a student teacher in our district. And so just like all of our other university partners, approving an MOU to allow to have a student teacher or academic counselor working in our district. Just like I think the last meeting we had USC, we had somebody from USC who's getting an online degree and living in this area, wanting to student teach in our school district.
Got it.
Okay.
And then Liz, can you talk about the early intervention listening sessions?
Yes, so that is our TUBE grant, the Tobacco Use Prevention Education, and we are working with an SOS group. And essentially it's using the TUBE grant monies that we have for this year to have SOS come and run listening groups of students in our middle schools and our high schools to talk about tobacco use specifically, because that's what the TUBE grant is focused on, and just tobacco use through vaping, et cetera. And then use the information that we get from students in those listening groups and focus groups to then springboard some of our next steps for the TUBE grant, which we also have for the next 2 years, and what we do to support students. And mostly it's just the idea of making sure that we're bringing student voice and student feedback into our goal setting for the grant and the work that we have planned.
I was wondering, it sounds great. Thank you for, pursuing that. But I was wondering how kind of to explain the process, like how are they recruiting the students? There are some students that are already very engaged with this. Are we going to have many voices there that maybe some of the voices we don't ordinarily hear? How are they going to go about that? Are they going to ask for site administration recommendations? Are they going to go through counselors? I mean, I just have a lot of questions about the process of finding the students, and then if it's going to be done through Zoom.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'm glad you asked that. The way that we're doing it is, it's similar to the way that we did when Circle Up ran their focus groups, which I'll talk about later this evening. The way we recruited was to give students more anonymity. We didn't necessarily run it through students having to report to administrators saying, I want to sign up for this, because we're hoping, we want to talk to students who may be struggling with this themselves, who may not want to tell an adult on campus. We'd like to think they'd like to tell us, but who may not want to step up and say, yes, this is an issue I'm having, or I'm struggling with addiction, or using tobacco. Just like with Circle Up, when we were recruiting students who were maybe struggling with harassment, discrimination, that were more quiet about it. And so we're going to reach out in the same way. We're having SOS do the same thing that Circle Up did, where they generate a link link, which then we can push out that goes directly to students that tells them you can sign up through a trusted adult on campus, or you can just click into this link and we'll keep your feedback anonymous.
Okay, so that would be like through Parent Square or something like that?
Right. Well, what Circle Up did was they created just a flyer that we then pushed out to students through Parent Square that
Okay.
had a link that went not back to us, but had a link that went directly to Circle Up. So Circle Up could then connect with the students directly, letting them know when and where the focus group would be. And this would be-
Were you happy with the kind of the makeup of the kids and that process? Did that work? Do you think to the amount of student voice that we'd like to have on this?
I can get into the Circle Up one later. Do you want?
I mean, just that process. Do you think it will be as successful here? Was it successful? Are there different things we could do?
There's probably different things we could do. We had about, for the Circle Up one specifically, we had about 8 signups. And in the end, as you'll learn later this evening, we had 2 students that actually showed up and gave feedback. So, it wasn't, I don't know, we're always looking for different ways to recruit and different ways to get student voice with this, so we'll see what we get from running these tobacco specific groups as well.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Joanna, can I ask one? Hey, Gary, would you, I want to follow up on the Pen Grove field trip, which I'm personally am really happy to see that's there. And I want to applaud the teachers that pulled it together and made this possible for their students. But could you respond to what the district can provide in terms of support to others who might be able to pull something together before the year's out?
Well, they would need to bring a proposal. Pen Grove was the only school in the district when we were charged to go out and look for extracurricular, what the extracurricular opportunities were going to be going into the spring. This particular event that they had, they communicated in the fall that they were planning if they had the ability to do so. And it was reiterated by the principal a number of times throughout December, January, February, March, literally up until last week. So we were not aware of any other events that were planned that people had, but if they would like to set something up, we'll deal with it on a case-by-case basis. But I mean, our goal would be to ensure that everyone had an opportunity if it was an issue related to finances. Now, we know that at some schools, for example, one particular school I worked with, a benefactor that has a significant amount of dollars that they did not spend last year because it was earmarked so that none of their students would who couldn't afford it ordinarily would pay any fee for overnight. So they could utilize those dollars for overnight, day trip, you name it. But we're certainly willing to work with anyone. We've been pushing for this since January, knowing that we would eventually be moving into yellow this year. We weren't, certainly it was at that particular time, it was beyond our thought that we would actually move it from yellow and blow through yellow and move right into orange. So, we would look at the resources we have available, because I think it's critical that for no other reason than just social emotional health, that students have an opportunity to do some of these activities.
Wasn't Pen Grove working on this for the past 9 months?
They've been longer than that with their families in their timeline, but they have been directly working with this throughout the year. This has been the one consistent thread. They wanted to keep their contract with their vendor available should they choose to exercise it. It's a unique year because there weren't a lot of other options, so they could have gotten out of their contract without paying anything. So it didn't hurt them to stay with it, but they stayed with their plan all the way through, and it happens to work out that they can meet all the guidelines by attending. So
I just want to make sure that every school does have the opportunity or access to plan these trips as well. And if the students can't afford them, then the district will cover the cost.
We certainly will look at that if it's an issue where they don't have the funding. And we're not looking to go out to parents. I'm not sure where the backpedaling came in all of this. I think it was being very thoughtful and trying to anticipate what certainly those issues are. But again, we didn't have any schools in February, in March, and April, or for that matter, January, December, November, come with ideas of events that they wanted to potentially do in the spring. Because Amanda's right, it takes a significant amount of time to plan these things. And so, you know, if teachers chose not to make those plans, we totally understand that. It just so happened that in this case, we did have a group of teachers that did make a commitment to plan for this, and they followed through with that. And and we need to honor that commitment if we can.
It sounds like they took a gamble, and in this case, they won. The pandemic situation played out for them.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a definite gamble. The guidance only recently allowed for overnight camps to start June 1st. So it's literally like the last week of school. It just happened to open up. It very well could have not been until later in June, and who knows if this would have happened at all. So kind of all just came together.
Yeah, I was going to ask about like the restrictions and the safety. So they're going to be gone for a week and then come back to school?
Well, they won't be reintegrating back in.
Last week of school.
Yeah, it's the last week of school.
And then like what is the guidance? What allows these types of trips to happen? You know,
Just have to meet all of the protocols. It's mostly the same protocols that we have for quite frankly, for classroom. The same masking guidelines, distancing guidelines, things like that.
So again, yeah, the actual guidance for overnight camps literally just came out a few days ago. So a few weeks back, they said starting June 1st, overnight camps can happen, more information to come, right? And then they just released the guidance, and Gary's right, it's a lot of the same stuff. 3-foot social distance, indoors, 6 feet when you're eating or snacking, masks on, students staying in kind of these stable groups as much as possible, traveling in stable groups. It's a lot of the same stuff.
It's quite a bit of work to set it up and to run it.
I think it's a fabulous opportunity. I'm glad they were able to pull it off.
any other questions or comments?
I have one comment about the student teaching thing. I had a student teacher from out of state. He was online, and then he was my student teacher in Tamales because he happened to live in Dillon Beach. And it was a great experience. He had to do a lot of filming, and the students had to sign permission slips to be shown on camera. But it worked out really, really nicely. And he went on to be a really good teacher. So
great. And then in this case, it's actually a speech and language teacher. So that's in the area. So
which we need.
Yes, we do.
All right, anything else? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Moving on to comments from the public on action items. So same deal, we'll open the chat. We're going to open up to only on the action items, and then Gary, I'll let you decide when to close the chat.
Sarah, that will bring you back when we go to the wellness center piece. because I don't believe there's anything in the action related to this.
No, there isn't. I looked.
So we'll have
No problem.
comments again on discussion items, Sarah.
No
so just
problem.
Hang tight till.
So I want to
then.
make sure you know, I can see that we can see it. I think we can close the action item.
Okay, item 12.1.1. Who was presenting this?
To move it in.
Sorry. Do we have to, I'm sorry, I don't know the logistics here. We have to move it in.
Yes.
Can I get a motion?
I move into the compensation increase for management and confidential employee groups.
I'll second.
Any comments, questions from anyone?
This is just a follow-up. This is a follow-up action from what we approved at the last board meeting.
Okay,
I'm good.
ready to vote? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Okay, item 12.1.2.
I move to approve the contracts for Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources and Student Services for school year 2021-22.
I'll second.
Okay, questions, comments?
No comments.
Okay.
Just replacement.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, item 12.1.3.
Okay, so this is a resolution of the Board of Education honoring the contribution of our classified school employees to quality education and declaring the week of May 17th through 21st as Classified School Employees Week. So before I read the resolution too, just want to, again, highlight and echo some of the comments that were said before. Our classified staff have gone above and beyond this year in particular during the pandemic, many of whom switched roles and supported distance learning cohorts, and they're just really want to commend the work of our classified school employees. Whereas classified school employees provide valuable services to the schools and students of the Petaluma school districts, whereas classified school employees contribute to the establishment and promotion of a positive instructional environment, whereas classified school employees employed by the Petaluma school district strive for excellence in all areas relative to the educational community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Petaluma school districts hereby recognize and wish to honor the contribution of the classified school employees to quality education in the state of California and in the Petaluma school districts, and declare the week of May 17th through 21st as Classified School Employees Week in the Petaluma school districts. From our maintenance team, maintenance and operations, our custodial staff, our transportation bus drivers, just some really, really excellent work this year. So we appreciate all their hard work.
Absolutely. I think like Loretta and Sandra said, like the schools can't run without these guys. So really appreciate you.
They were heroic during the pandemic, when we were trying to put together those cohorts. They were.
And talk about flexibility in this wild time, for an understatement to say the least.
Yeah. So I move to approve resolution 2021-26 of the Board of Education.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, now it's comments from the public on discussion/information items. We'll reopen the chat in case anyone else would like to comment on this. And then Gary, again, I'll let you decide when to close it.
Okay, I think we can close it.
Okay, first up is Sarah.
Hi there, everyone. Again, thank you for doing all the work that you do. In the last LCAP meeting, I had the honor and privilege to be in the Spanish speaking group with some wonderful stakeholders, families, and translators. Many things were discussed as we were talking about all the different things in the LCAP, but two things came up that were really kind of vital and went straight to the core of what we're trying to do in terms of equity and make up some places where we have a debt to our communities. One of them is in regards to counseling. Families reported that multiple times they had requested counseling support for Tabitha, please, my left, thank you. Counseling support for students that were in need and in help with mental health and were not able to have counseling sessions with the mental health counselors. In fact, they were not able to get them after multiple years of requests to get the help that they needed until something happened that then became an issue that was a reaction to a disciplinary instance, wherein the support then came in as a result of a disciplinary action rather than a proactive support. I think this speaks directly to the need that we have all been talking about for more counselors and a smaller student to counselor ratio at our school. It also speaks to the need to have more than just bilingual aides who serve as translators, interpreters, counselors, social workers, because we do not have the bilingual staff in order to meet them. We really do need to have psychologists and marriage and family counselors as mental health who are Spanish speakers. Secondarily, families discussed having a challenging time navigating the systems in understanding and knowing where they're supposed to be, when, how to be able to navigate systems if they have a student with disabilities, being able to have a roadmap and understand really how to work through the systems. I think this speaks to a couple different things. One, families being sent to ELAC meetings in order to discuss issues, where ELAC is not meant to be a catch-all to be instead of board meetings or, principal coffee mornings where a lot of things get discussed and people learn how to navigate the systems in those meetings. If we do not have Spanish speakers or specific meetings for the Spanish speakers or Mandarin speakers or any other languages, it's not English, then people are missing out. And we really need to be able to do that. I wanted to really uplift something. PCS is doing a panel tomorrow night from 6 to 8 for parents and caregivers who are supporting the LGBTQI families and students. This type of program is really vital and really wonderful that we're doing it for the LGBTQI families, and should be a model that we do repeatedly every year for all different affinity groups to aid and support in programming and navigation through our system when you have different needs than what is the dominant norm culture. I think that you all are doing it really well and starting it now with LGBTQI families. And I think we need to do it for disabled families. We need to do it for different languages. We need to do it for socioeconomically disadvantaged families. Anybody that needs help managing through. I have a hard time sometimes navigating the system, and I come from a very privileged background, and I pay attention.
Sarah.
So thank you all. That's all I wanted to talk about, and just make sure that you keep that in mind. Thank you very much.
Okay, next up we have Maite.
Oops, sorry, I was muted. I think you can hear me now. So similar but different from what Sarah was talking about. I was not in the LCAP with the Spanish speaking parents, but as we are looking forward to next school year and knowingly hoping that we're going to bring more students onto campus in the area of counseling, I understand that we have academic counselors and mental health counseling, and I believe we need to take a look at the fact that we're going to probably need more of both at elementary and high school. And parents don't really understand the difference. They go to their child's academic counselor and it's confusing. And as a teacher, I feel like this can be confusing. So, and that's for somebody who somewhat should know how to navigate the system. So as you look to use some of this money, consider for next year having more mental health counselors and taking a look at the high school level. We probably do need more academic counselors because they're stretched very thin with the ratios that are going on. And what unfortunately happens, as you all know, is we have misinformation for students on what they should be doing for their getting enough credits and going into the right classes and so forth. But thank you for all the work you're doing. I think you're all doing an amazing job. Thank you.
Thank you, Maite. And lastly, we have Sal.
Hello, Sal Andropoulos, they them pronouns with Petaluma Tide, North Bay LGBTQI families. So just regarding the American Rescue Plan Act funding that sounds like will be sort of available to schools and to PCS over the next couple of years. Just wanted to say that in determining how those funds will be allocated with regard to pandemic responses, just wanted to ask PCS to ensure representation in that process by members of the most impacted and often underrepresented communities. And also wanted to urge PCS to utilize pandemic response funds to invest in professional development related to curriculum and school climate to create safe and culturally conscious learning environments for LGBTQIA+, BIPOC, and all students, specifically in the context of mitigating learning loss and addressing pandemic impacts. We know that having culturally responsive and safe school environments leads to better outcomes, for students who see their own identities reflected and affirmed in curriculum and school and the school environment, and benefits all students and is a critical aspect of supporting LGBTQIA+ and BIPOC students going forward. And just, for example, just highlighting, specific needs of like LGBTQIA+ students in the context of the pandemic. These students already, again, experience very significant mental health disparities, and those have been compounded by the increased isolation of the past year, particularly for those who are not in a safe home environment. So just it's especially critical that as the district moves forward with things like FAIR Act implementation, and also, the new, ethnic studies coursework coming over the next year, which are very positive developments, that this is accompanied by adequate and ongoing training for educators and staff so that these subjects are presented in a manner that's culturally conscious, rather than a manner that could be potentially harmful, for BIPOC and LGBTQIA+ students, if there isn't sufficient support for educators. And then lastly, just another area to look at for this funding and just in the overall planning is just to look at things like credit recovery options for students who can't make it to sort of like stuff that's scheduled, before or after school due to things like working to support their families. And also culturally responsive resources aimed at helping families to navigate the system as it relates to things like credit recovery in terms of pandemic response. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Sal. We are going to move on to our discussion items. First up is update on the American Rescue Plan Act funding and planning.
Yeah, so I'll thank Sal for the wonderful introduction to the topic. There was a few questions I think we got from board members about these funds. We've had some questions as well, so we wanted to put it on here to talk about what we know. We know a little, we don't know a lot. The president signed into act the American Rescue Plan Act in March, and then some information came out right after that about what the funds were intended to be used for. And then states were given an allocation, but our state has not yet allocated out district amounts. CSBA, California Schools Board Association, they have an estimate, but I don't want to share that because I don't know how accurate that is. But they went through and estimated what school districts might see coming their way. But the intent of the funds, it's meant to be a COVID related learning and school reopening funding source. We know that of the uses that are approved in the funds, at least 20% of them have to be used to what they're calling making up learning loss. It's not verbatim, but things like summer school programs, enrichment programs, extended day programs, supporting learning loss, supporting acceleration, things like tutoring, counseling is definitely a piece there, both academic and social emotional, increasing mental health services, things like that. And there's a whole bunch of things we've started to brainstorm with some of our stakeholder groups. But we're still waiting for more specifics from the state on exactly what we can and can't use the funds for. We will receive them. In essence, they're one-time funds, but we have 2 years to spend them. So we have until the end of September 2023. So it follows the federal funding cycle. We have 27 months, in essence, to spend the money. So we do have the ability to carry something out for 2 years, not just one, which is good. We've heard a number of things about whether or not we have to have an official plan in place by June 1 or a plan published by June 1. I've seen the June 1st date put out there. I haven't seen it officially yet, so we're still trying to follow that. But part of this work is going to be assessing the need. Clearly, where are we at academically and social emotionally? And to what Sal was saying, the money is intended to be used on the hardest hit schools and students. So there comes, equity comes into play here. We may use the funds differently across the district depending on needs by site and by student population. So our job is to, convene our stakeholders and to start to brainstorm and plan for what we might do with these funds. So we're going to be putting together a committee that works in, parallel to the LCAP group, but not necessarily the same group. Some of this information, some of our plan may end up in the LCAP. But we've already started a little bit. We started with introducing the topic at our last LCAP meeting. We've had some discussions with the admin, some discussions in cabinet. We had a meeting yesterday with our APs and counselors and just started throwing out, the notion that we are going to have these additional funds and started to get some brainstorms going with them. So we're going to be reaching out to staff and having a larger official, committee that works through this, that can represent the sites, represent ideas. And we're hoping to learn sooner rather than later, especially if there is a June 1st deadline.
Who's a Picasso's?
What's going on?
Jason's unmuted. There we go. Sorry. He really wanted to jump in. I lost my train of thought. We're waiting for more specifics from the state. I could read you verbatim what the actual act says. It's not just to mitigate learning loss, it's to help reopen schools. So some of it could be applied to PPE. Obviously right now we don't know exactly what phase we'll be in when we come back. It can be used for staffing, for avoiding layoffs if we're in that situation. It can also be used for helping, social distance on transportation. It can be used for Wi-Fi hotspots for students. So it's a number of things. It's not specific to just learning loss, but that is probably the thing that gets the most attention. So that's what we know right now. I reached out to SCO last week. They shared nothing. They shared nothing with me that we didn't already know, which is not a lot. So we're all still waiting for more specifics from the state on, allowables and exactly what our allocation will be. So that's what I know to date. If there's any questions or comments.
Well, from my perspective, reopening schools, students can't learn unless we deal with the social emotional issues. So the idea of counseling is foremost in my mind, and also so that people understand academic counselors do more than just academics. They deal with whatever comes up. But I really want to see money spent on counseling and on professional development for staff. I think those are two really high priorities, in my opinion.
Same, and thank you. I was one of those board members. I just kept hearing a lot about this act and the monies. And so I knew that probably you didn't have a lot of information yet, but I just wanted to make sure that everybody on the board and our community hear that that's what's going on, and we have a plan. And I'm really glad to hear that, that you're already on it and forming committees. And I wasn't able to go to LCAP, so I'm sure we'll be able to master this one too.
So part of that, part of having a plan is it's our obligation and expectation from the state that we've identified both learning gains and learning losses very specifically, which we have not done to date. We've not identified, where we're at. So it's going to be critical that we do that, because any of the plans, the components to the plan that don't address specifically the academic pieces of that, and as you mentioned, Maddie, the social emotional issues tied to it, because we know they go hand in hand. If kids are not in a good place, they're not going to perform, certainly in the way that we would hope for them to. So there's a lot of work to do on this one, and not a lot of data that's out yet. And once we get really firm figures, we'll get those out right away. But it's really unknown at this point in time. What are we talking about as far as dollars? And the intent of those dollars are really to spend on helping us right the ship with our kids. The money needs to get through services or what have you directly to those students.
I'm really.
I'll save some of my counseling questions for later, because I know Liz is going to present on that after this. But Cliff, do we have like a timeline of have they told you when we'll know more? Or maybe Chris, one of you. Like
no.
No. Okay.
No, could be tomorrow. I mean,
We just
I don't know.
go online every day and try to see what we can find.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that in spending this money, you're going to be involving stakeholders. I think that's really essential to listen to the community and what they feel the needs are.
Yeah, I mean, to Gary's point, and this ties in a little bit to Krista's comment earlier, for academics, clearly we need to assess where we're at. Social emotionally, we've done some youth through surveys for junior highs happening right now. High school, we did it in January. So we'll have some data to look at. I still need to share with the board. But I can tell you without looking at the data, we clearly have social emotional needs. Academics is a little more difficult. The importance of testing this year, whether it's CASP or another tool, is to at least have, if not anything, at least a baseline to go forward from. And just anecdotally, I'll share this week they put out in one of my listservs, they put out the results from STAR Reading and STAR Math. It's a national tool that a lot of districts use, and they reported out that nationally the learning loss, if you will, isn't as drastic as they thought it would be. That students are still making gains during the pandemic, But on average, for example, in English, students who would normally be at the 50th percentile are now at the 44th percentile. So there's your loss. So they were able to kind of go back and look at where students would normally be in each grade. And that was just an example. It's 6 percentiles lower is what it is. I just used 50 to 44. I could have done 60 to 54, but so that's just nationally. We haven't looked at our data yet, and we can, and we do have that data for elementary. For secondary, part of our plan is going to need to include actually assessing it. So what tool do we use? Because we don't have common benchmarks in secondary. We haven't been using a STAR type program. We just have the CASP in 11th grade. So part of our plan is going to be assessing it in the first place. Like, what is it? Where are we? So in some areas we'll know and we can attack. In other areas we're going to have to assess and establish, our baseline.
I also would add, and I think Cliff might have already mentioned this, that we're hoping that at the end of the day, we get at least 2 years to spend this money so that we can come up with a 2-year plan, because we know the recovery from the impacts, especially the most social emotional ones, are not going to be just a 1-year recovery period. I do think that we need a longer term plan to try to come up with how to address these issues. And that also may have to come through the LCAP and the Budget Advisory Committee once these funds are spent. So it may mean a reprioritizing of funds in the long term, knowing we hopefully have this money in the short term, the first 2 years, to try to address it. But maybe by then we have better data to truly be able to assess it as well. So.
And Cliff, you stated that some of the money should be earmarked for reopening in the fall, or just like, because you said it's supposed to be used over 2 years, but what is that reopening piece? Just for the fall or just in general? Not sure.
So actually, what we know right now, the only earmarking per se is that at least 20% of the funds have to be used on mitigating learning loss and social emotional, needs. That's the only specific earmark. The other list is allowable uses. So if we still have reopening needs, PPE, things like that, we can use these funds for that as well. And now granted, I'm just reading directly from the abstract that they put out. I'm sure PD, for example, is going to be an allowable use. It's not specifically called out, but when it says support for teachers, support for staff, I'm sure that's going to be in there as well.
We just have to be careful, because last time they put out all of this matrix on exactly how you can spend the 4 or 5 buckets that we received. And then later, after we had spent a certain portion of the money, just to clarify, when the actual reporting requirements came out, it clarified what could be spent on which, and so it changed. So they put out what they think, and then when they actually start doing the reports, so we just have to be a little bit careful that we build in that level of flexibility into the plan so we can respond when we have really good data on how the money can be spent.
And how often are they communicating with you about reopening and what that will look like in the fall? Or is that asking too much?
I don't know who they is.
I don't know. Whoever the powers that be.
No, I mean, I guess I can answer that briefly. I mean, what we know right now is what Governor Newsom has said, that he hopes we have a full reopening in the fall. But then we also know the state superintendent said there should still be a distance learning option for families who want it. The current state bills that they put into play this year that allow for distance learning expire. So the legislature would have to make that an option again, the distance learning piece. So that plus the potential recall, I mean, who knows where this is going to end up. But unless they do enact something or extend something, the current state, Senate bills, state bills, they do expire. They sunshine, they end. So then we're back to, pre-pandemic, unless they come out with something else.
So, but the distance learning piece isn't necessarily in conjunction with an in-person. It wouldn't be hybrid. It could be independent study or something like that, right?
Yeah, you could do what a lot of other districts did. They did like a virtual learning academy
Yeah.
with enough foresight. They said, if this is your option, we're going to carve you over here and make you kind of a special program. And so they didn't have anyone doing hybrid. You were just doing in person or just distance learning. You didn't have to do both.
Oh, God, that would have been great.
We've had very preliminary discussions about if they open that up again, the distance learning option, that's probably the better route to plan on.
I think so. And so then would the monies be able to be used to hire teachers and to create something like that? Counselors, the whole works for something like that. Can the money be used for teachers basically and for staff?
Like
I don't know yet. It can be used to prevent layoffs. So how much freedom, how much leeway is there?
Well, I guess
know.
I'm thinking that if they're saying that, it can be used that the state superintendent is saying that we need to have that option available, then to have staffing of it would seem necessary.
Yeah, I think we've conflated two things here. So the ARP funding was the prior discussion. What the state superintendent and the governor have said, completely separate from these funds. Right?
But doesn't it have something to do with reopening?
The funds do, yeah.
So if you reopen and you decide that the best thing for your district in reopening is to have distance learning component, then wouldn't that be covered? I'm sorry, I must be missing something.
Yeah, maybe. I can't say.
Maybe.
Yes
I know,
or no
I'm
without
sorry,
hearing
you
the
can't
details,
answer
yeah.
that. I was just wondering about staffing and money for staffing, but sounds like it's not there.
I mean, my understanding is the legislature would have to approve some type of authorization allowing for distance learning.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay, I'm
because
sorry.
otherwise it's either independent
Yeah.
study or regular school.
I
right?
see. I'm sorry.
Yeah. All right, so that's what we know, and it's not a lot, but we'll share more when we know more.
Keep us
Thank
posted.
you.
All right, moving on. Liz been so patient. All right.
And I will piggyback off of that. That's what we know, and it's not a lot, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't start our conversation around how we may be able to use those dollars for the socio-emotional pieces of this, because as we all know that's so critical. And so I'll kind of talk for a little while, but this is more discussion from everyone else. I just know that what we really want to do is be able to bring student voice in. We worked on it with the Youth Truth Survey, with the Circle Up focus groups, and I'll be sending you that Circle Up focus group data tomorrow. So that's one piece of what we're trying to do. But there's also in the broader scheme of just all things wellness, and bringing in student voice. It's relooking at our matrix of other means of correction and restorative practices, and really, we're working with Circle Up on that, but really ramping that up to build it into our system. Building up our capacity and our work that we do with community partners. Obviously, we work with Mentor Me, we work with Youth Thrive, with Petaluma People Services. We're an active part of CHIPA, and it's great, and we just want to see how can we further bring those resources into our schools to help our students with those socio-emotional pieces. Looking for continued work with counselors, with our guidance coordinators, to continue the work that we're doing with mental health. And then also maybe the campus supervisors that we have, looking more towards possible those student advisor positions that we highlighted at a board meeting. I think it was maybe at the beginning of this year, where it's more restorative. They're doing more in the way of conversations with kids and administrators and parents, and seeing how we can ramp that up in an overall wellness model. Would be a great thing too. And so I think, right now it's written in a very vague way, again, because we don't know what this money is going to be for, but it says, wellness coordinator, wellness center, counselors, and because we know all those things would help. But I think, a coordinator is someone who could tie all these pieces together and really pull that out and put it into the community, and maybe even write grants, so that in the long run, after this 2 years, the money goes away, we have those partnerships, we have someone that can write grants in order to sustain this work. And so, right now it's vague because we don't know what the money is going to be for. Could be something that ends up being really solid and help build sort of that bigger umbrella of wellness. And I forgot one thing to mention, and Chris has mentioned this before, and I thought it was a great idea too, just the whole idea of food services and nutrition being built under that umbrella as well. It's just such a big thing and such a big piece for our kids. We really want to take the opportunity this 2 years to build it up, use the funding to build it up into something that's sustainable. So
thank you.
Yeah, I know. I think it was either Maddie or Ellen said at one point, like, would love to see, I guess, kind of like an audit, like, what do we have at each site? Like, what are our ratios? Like, how many academic counselors, how many hours do they have the mental health folks on campus?
I can do that. I pulled it up so that I could screen share what we have in guidance coordinators. I asked Linda Walsh sent this to me. So I know specifically this isn't the academic counselor piece, but this is the guidance coordinator piece. And you can see what we have, by school, hours per school. So the top number, this is usually, like the top name, for example, would be like a specialist or an associate. And then these names, Jillian, Laura, Linda Walsh, Nikki Jackson, those are our coordinators that oversee all the hours, but they work with students on those sites as well. So you can get a picture.
I have a quick question. When you're talking about the MFTs, are they available to see all students, or do they have a caseload?
Yeah, it's a good, generally they have a caseload. However, if there's a student in crisis, that we often, the MFTs will go outside of their caseload to work with those students in crisis, so, and then our school counselors also work with students who are struggling. So it's a team effort. And then some of our more students who do the ongoing therapy end up as part of our MFT caseloads.
Thank you.
Did you want me to leave this chart up for another minute?
I just think it's great how many actual LMFTs and LCSWs we have. It's only a few trainees, and they're obviously getting awesome experience.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, a huge shout out. I hope they're still on this call, to Nikki Jackson, Laura. I think they were tuned in this evening. But just they do a ton of work in recruiting the associates and the trainees, in working with them and overseeing their hours and giving them the practice and supervising them, and then working to retain them in our system so that we can continue with them in the long run.
Yeah, definitely want to see more mental health counselors as well, because it's kind of like the school nurse situation, like they're spread between 2 or 3 sites. It'd be good to have more those guys as well.
Does the Petaluma Health Center, I think it's Petaluma Health Center that has the health center at CASA's campus. Do they have it at any other campus yet, or is it still just at CASA?
They do. It's CASA in San Antonio. I want to CASA in San Antonio, or the two.
In San Antonio.
Yeah, it's those two.
And that's run by the Petaluma Health District, or Center.
Yes, in conjunction with the schools, and so there's a partnership there. And again, one we'd love to be more robust. It's sometimes been tricky with the whole insurance and who covers what, and we'd love to just make it more accessible to all students and help remove those roadblocks as again part of a bigger wellness coordinator effort.
I mean, we have some great therapists like Linda Walsh, Nikki Jackson. Those are just amazing professionals. We have mental health support at every site, as well as academic counselors, but I just wonder, like, what is missing? Like, what is the piece that's missing? Because we continue to hear from students and parents that there is, like, I don't know if it's like connection or there seems to be something missing. And so I don't know if we can do more, like, once the kids are back on campus, or even now, I guess, like, just more surveying, more in-depth, just to figure out do we need more representation? Do we bilingual counselors? Yes, absolutely, that as well. But like, what is a missing link? Do we need to start with more mental health earlier, more classroom guidance? Like, yeah, I just
Yeah.
feel
And those are
something
the
missing.
questions. Yeah, that, you know, the student voice helps. Like I said, I'll pass along what Circle Up did. The two students who did participate had some great insights, but we'd love to get more student voice to dig down on that.
Yeah, Liz, do we know how long the average like wait list kind of time to be in the caseload is for a student who's not necessarily in crisis? But
you know, I mean, Nikki Jackson is on this call and we could ask her. I think she'd have more specific data on that. If she's here, I don't know, Ashley, if you're able to let her in, she may be able to address that question directly. She said she'd be available to answer questions on this tonight.
well, Nikki, if you don't have the answer right now, I don't want to put you on the spot. Don't stress. Same with you, Liz. If you don't have it, you don't have it. But
there's Nikki, she's in.
Really good question.
Yeah, I can answer. Let me see if I can start my video. I'm in my garage, so forgive that. But yeah, I can answer a lot of the questions. So Petaluma Health Center, we do work very closely with. We have monthly meetings with the mental health team and the physician who's our liaison between that as well, along with Becky at San Antonio, but we address the issues at CASA and San Antonio. So we do work really well with them. It's just that, you know, the shutdown has made it more difficult. In terms of wait lists, I can tell you that traditionally we run mental health wait lists by about September every school year. And it's because we just don't have the numbers to be able to keep up with a need. It is, you know, when I hear you say, do you have a caseload or do you do crisis? Like the way that we get our caseload is student self-referrals, parent referrals. You know, we work closely with principals, with school counselors to get referrals that way. So it's not like we have a select group of people that we're pulling from. It's just that once we get full, we get full. You know, being an MFT, we answer to a licensing board. We have an ethical obligation to ensure a certain level of care. And so we can't be spread too thin, especially when we're dealing with kids with severe mental health issues, with suicidality and addiction and things like that. And of course, we are referring as we can. But we also know that we're limited in Petaluma to what mental health services we have to even refer our students to. So I have lots of ideas. I'd love to be a part of a panel and conversation about how to spend monies working towards supporting mental health. And we love the students. That's part of what, you know, I always say I'm so proud of working for Petaluma City Schools because we've been at the forefront of the mental health, school-based mental health in all of the county. We have people from Rohnert Park, from Santa Rosa, from Windsor, who are building their mental health, school-based mental health programs, who reach out to us to ask us how we've done it and been successful in it. So we have a lot to be proud of with the work that we've done here. And it breaks my heart when I hear that there are people who have been on wait lists and haven't been able to access our services. You know, that's devastating. And we feel that, right? We carry our caseloads with us, and we always want to be able to do more. So, you know, this year we did do a lot with kind of expanding reach in terms of having student self-referrals that they can actually, you know, access on their school websites at the high school level, and I think at the junior high as well. So we are trying to do more to be able to be more engaged and to be able to have students access our services on their own as well.
So a couple things. I think the first is I need to have a garage like Miss Jackson has. That I need that.
This is the
I need that.
I need that.
I need that. I need that. The garage. So that's for me to aspire to. But on a serious note, I really do believe that you have a unique situation here with some of these dollars because of the one-time nature of it. I think, and I think that it'll be critical to have some MFT input in some of this process. I think it's really important that you try a number of things to see what appears to read. This is your opportunity to do some real action research, try some things. There is not one way to skin the cat, so to speak. Do some things, and then you'll know after the end of this cycle, what are those things that are really worth investing in that's going to cost you ongoing dollars? And what are the things that were nice to do, but they really didn't generate the results that you were hoping for? So, and it's both in obviously the counseling component, also with the academic component. This is the opportunity to try some things. I think if it's just going down one particular path, then you're not going to be able to gather information about whether there was a better way to do it, and you'll be stuck with, how do we sustain this? It's easy to sustain program when it's really successful. You find ways when it's really successful, and that's what you want to do. You want to find a couple pathways. And so I think that, Liz is on the right track with with the wellness concept, but aligned with that, to go back, I think we can talk about it later, but I think that there's some ways we really need to dig deep and talk directly to our students, just our general populations of students, and do some randomized sampling there, and get some information, because we need to know more about where they are right now and where they feel their needs are. I think that's going to be really important, as we go through this process. I think I just
Any
left
questions
everybody
for-
speechless. I don't know.
Gary, just took our breath away. Actually, it was Nikki.
Yeah, it really was. And that she left me speechless looking at that place.
Any other questions or
I
comments?
just want to
for-
say, Nikki, every time I hear you, I'm always just in awe of your commitment to our students, to your students. Your energy. I think we're really lucky. And I thank you for what you're doing. For the whole staff, I mean, really, but you just bring this clarity. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. We're very lucky to have the job we are, and we're lucky that we get to maintain a caseload as well, right? So we're not just overseeing the people who work with the students, but we get to work with the students, and I think that keeps it fresh for all of us too. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Liz, or I guess, or Nikki? All right, thank you both. Really appreciate it. Future business.
I have, am I unmuted? No. Okay.
You're unmuted. Go ahead.
Okay. Where it says survey of libraries and ELA and social studies, I just wanted to clarify that that's classroom libraries, not, because we already kind of talked about the regular libraries. And so that survey of library, it's classroom libraries, and it's also to include authors and titles that are used in the curriculum. So I just wanted to clarify that.
So Ellen, if you will send me the question, I'll create the Google Doc and we'll get it out, but I want to make sure it's exactly what you want.
Okay, well, Maddie and I are working on it, and we'll get
All
it
right.
very soon, right, Maddie?
Yes.
This is going to get pretty crazy this next month, because
There's a lot.
all eyes geared towards wrapping up the budget, and making that movement towards planning for next year. It just goes very fast. You saw that there's a lot of there's a lot of events also that are going to be taking place, and some of that's just by necessity because of the distancing requirements. And so it's going to be, I have a feeling we're going to have a very fast May and June.
Yeah, I agree.
This will probably not come back. I mean, just looking at that timeline, and we wanted to have input from teachers. So it will probably be a summer project.
I would like to, I don't know if this is something that Circle Up could do or like another nonprofit like Save Your Six. I just feel like we need more Title VI training, PDs, starting with the board. So at some point, if we could either have like a board presentation on Title VI and how it impacts our students.
I would love a training.
Just like Circle Up, you know, we did the training and now everyone is. So either a PD for us or just a presentation. I'd like to see that.
I also
Again,
think
I feel like there's like a piece that's missing, and just how do we address that, like the connection.
well, and I think we need PD on Title VI for staff
Yeah,
and administration.
right.
And Title IX, both of them are.
Those already-
Or our staff is getting the Title VI training on June 7th as the district-wide PD.
Oh, great.
Yeah, we're working, but yes. we're doing
Joanna,
it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Joanna, I'm glad you reminded me as you were going through this. We have our board study session coming up, and I need to communicate that out to parents and community. And so I want to make sure that we have my understanding is we're doing two topics related to that. One is, you know, an exploration of dual immersion. Would that be the accurate title? That was my understanding.
Mhm.
And then the second part is related to it's kind of like almost an extension of this, is related to really social emotional counseling, or is it counseling in general?
I think it's social emotional.
Mhm.
was
Okay,
my-
we may know a little bit more at that particular time about the Recovery Act.
Yeah.
Well, then I mean, yeah, I wanted to have both discussions, but I just want to make sure we give fair time to both. Is that going to be enough time? We're talking about 3 hours, right? I don't even know what time it starts.
I think so.
So wait for the communication.
Yeah, I think it's because I think it's not I think it's going to be the first of probably multiple discussions related to both of these items. But it's starting with a couple central questions and then drilling down on that. I think the dual immersion one is really about how do you do that? How do you actually mechanically go about doing that? We could do an overview of what it is, what the typical model is that's being utilized. I mean, I'm real familiar with that, having gone through that with a couple schools. So I think maybe, well, I'm going to see you on Friday. So we can come up with some essential questions related to the counseling thing.
Okay.
To start with. How's that sound?
Yep, sounds good.
Okay. I think that's going to be really a really important kickstart.
And the feeders schools have been invited?
No, that's the community
Oh, that's
forum.
community forum, never mind. I just read.
Yeah.
What I get for not
I
reading.
believe though that there's been some invites that have already been made on the dual immersion, Matthew, isn't that correct? Yeah.
Someone from
Yes.
Old
For the dual language from Old Adobe. I don't think, who's that?
No, I'm asking just for the.
Oh, we can ask. Yeah, we can invite. Yeah.
Just to be transparent and be a partner. I think it's critical we have them.
Yeah. We have had the conversation. I've spoken with him, but yeah.
Well, I will, I can probably, I mean, I know a number of people that have started this so that they could speak to it. It's because it's really, you really want to know about the mechanics of starting it. So.
And Esmeralda will be there as well.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
All right.
I think that's all we have.
Thank you.
Anyone else? So we have a list.
So
but
is that before our next board meeting?
yeah,
Yes, it is.
On the
next
8th.
Saturday,
Oh,
May 8th at
yay.
maybe 9 o'clock. I don't know what time.
One,
9 to noon.
I think it's 9 to noon,
That's really early.
but I don't know, is it on Zoom?
As of right now.
It is, okay.
one more thing, Joanna, on the business. I just want to draw attention to revision to climate resolution. Maddie and I are working on that, and I want to give a heads up, particularly to Cliff. You know, we're gonna the 2018 resolution is, you know, I think is great, and we're gonna try to put some more specificity to it, but by nature of it being a resolution, that's what it is, just kind of declaration of our values. I raise it because I'd love to see, I want to throw some support behind what Maddie and Joanna and others and LCAP have been doing to trying to bring environmental literacy into the LCAP, you know, priorities. So just, you know, I suspect that our climate resolution coming will have some of that language, but you don't have to wait for that to come out before you have that discussion in LCAP.
We had that, I was at the last LCAP, and those are the two things that really came up, was the environmental literacy and counseling. So.
Oh, good.
Yeah, thanks, Sheldon. That's good to know. We always have like a contingent there supporting the environmental literacy inclusion in the LCAP. It's good to know that this is going on too, because that gives it a little more weight. That's good.
That's what I figured.
Yeah. All right.
Right, is that it? I mean, we have a list, but you
Yeah,
know,
that's
I know there's always room
a
for
lot of it.
more with this group. All right, so I believe that's it. We are adjourned.
Good night,
See-
everybody.
Good
see you
night.
guys
Thank
all
you
on
all.
May 8th.
Thank you all for doing such a great job.
Yeah.
Thank you all of the people who come every week.
Yeah. It's kind of the only good thing about Zoom is we get a lot more attendance at our meetings.
Yeah. Thank you.
Be safe.